For the phosphorus cycle. When we think about the phosphorus cycle, we have to remember that it's a major component of DNA and RNA as well as ATP. If you remember from chemistry, the ATP as well as in biology, this molecule is used by cells for energy transfer. It's required by both plants and animals, and it's a limiting nutrient, second only to nitrogen in its importance for successful agricultural needs. So today I'm going to be discussing this, the phosphorus cycle, as each of the steps, as well as its anthropogenic, the consequences and the effects to the environment. The figure that you see in front of you on the screen shows the process of phosphorus cycle. This cycle has no gaseous component. And there's no atmospheric inputs of phosphorus, which occurs when phosphorus is dissolved in rainwater or sea spray, or very, very small. It is not soluble in water, so much of it precipitates out of the solution, forming a phosphate. The small amount of phosphorus dissolved in water also means that phosphorus is a primary limiting nutrient in many freshwater and marine food webs. If you look on this up top over by the rocks, this is going to be kind of like our first step, is weathering. So we can find phosphorus in the uplifted rocks, and they contribute to phosphates to the land. Some of these phosphates make their way back to the ocean. Over here on your left by the fertilizer in land, we see phosphates fertilizer applied to fields can run off directly into streams and can become part of the soil pool, or it can be absorbed by plants. And remember, phosphorus is a component in all living things. If you go down here by the ocean and into the rocks, you see excretion by animals and decomposition of both animals and plants, and those release phosphates on land and water. Moving on to the aquatics, into the aquatic ecosystem, we look at dissolved phosphates precipitate out of solution and contribute to the ocean sediments. Conversion of sediments into phosphate rocks is a very slow process, if you can recall this from the rock cycle. So as we kind of summarize with regards to the ocean or any type of freshwater ecosystem or whatnot, is we see dissolved phosphates. Those are going to, they're insoluble in water, and we see a lot of it from runoff from fertilizer. We also see this in the decomposition of animals as well as their waste that will have runoff into that water. Kind of rounding about and finishing up the process, we see the geological forces when we have phosphates that are internal into the rocks. They can slowly lift up the phosphate rocks from the ocean floor to form mountains. A specific case study is going to be dealing with algal blooms in the Florida Everglades. And how can we work towards sustainability? Because of the agricultural expansion in southern Florida, the water flows through Florida Everglades has experienced an elevated phosphorus bloom or concentrations of phosphorus. This change in the nutrient cycling has changed the ecosystem of the Everglades, so the habitat has changed, and therefore the species have changed as well. And over time, this is becoming more of a common situation in looking at sawgrass species because they have declined. Animals that also have depended on those sawgrass in the Everglades for food or habitat are no longer favored. So that's an example. Another example is just your simple algal bloom. When excess phosphorus enters the waterways, it can stimulate a sudden rapid growth of algae that turns the water bright green. You may have seen this before, perhaps in your pool. The algae eventually die, and the resulting increase in decomposition can reduce the dissolved oxygen, or what's known as DO levels, in that area that are lethal to fish and to shellfish.